Welcome back to the Big Lab podcast. In this episode, I'm going to talk all about the tech that's transforming our daily lives. A little bit of something different, but something that is going to impact pretty much all of us, really. So, obviously, there's the speed of change. So, we've got these ever-changing, rapid technological evolutions. So, I'm sure when we were kids, we thought, how could it get much more advanced than this? Like, for instance, on my desk, I've actually still got an old Game Boy Color. We probably didn't think it was going to get much more technological than this at the time. We probably had Nokia brick phones. Well, at least our parents did. And now we're dealing with iPhone 16s, which are more powerful than computers were literally 5-10 years ago. So things are getting more powerful, and I think it's getting even quicker, if anything. It's not really slowing down. And one of the things to do with that is obviously AI being implemented. I use AI quite often. I use it for my podcast now quite a lot to help me with writing notes and structuring out different episodes, which, may sound like cheating. I still have a look over the notes. I still put my own spin on things, but it really does take a lot of the time out of things because obviously I'm doing this podcast alongside my day job and alongside doing a bit of online personal training and just training myself and living life at the end of the day. So if I can cut my time down doing research and writing notes, it's only going to help me at the end of the day. And then I just put my own spin on things, change it up, take out bits that I like, add things that I want in there. But it's been really useful for me recently, especially when I have guests on, because what I can do is ask chatgpt, look at someone's Instagram profile and ask me questions around some of the posts that they've put in there, and then also say, right, I want to speak about a certain topic, and then it'll basically plan out a podcast and it'll have a nice structure to it. And then, like I say, I go in and just add my own spin onto it, and it's saved me so much time. But just a bit of an example. So at CES 2025, there were over 4,500 exhibitors showcasing innovations of AI and robotics, which is obviously showing that accelerated pace of technology. We are actually using it probably a lot more than we think. So in a recent study, it found that nearly all Americans use products with AI features, yet only 64% are aware of this integration. An additional 32% of consumers reported using generative AI tools like ChatGPT in the past week, indicating obviously a rapid adoption of it. Like I say, I use it on a daily basis, not a daily basis, but at least a weekly basis anyway. I know a lot of other people that are using it for instance, my brother, he's started using it to create workout plans for him. So he says, these are my goals, this is what I've been doing recently, and it'll formulate a workout plan. So could that see the end of online PTs and personal trainers if you can literally get a workout plan from the likes of ChatGPT or Grok, which is now on X, which is formerly Twitter? There's a lot of integration with AIs that you probably don't even realize on a day-to-day basis. So one of the issues I've not found, but I am starting to notice a lot more on Instagram, especially, is the rise of AI-generated content, because it's sort of blurring the lines between human and machine creation of content. And some of them are getting really, really realistic. So there's some that come up on my Instagram sometimes, and I'm like, I genuinely don't know if that's an actual person or not. And then it's literally the most subtle of sort of maybe like a blurred line or slight issue with the actual creation of the content. Then that's when you realize that it is AI and it's not real. But like I say, these are only going to get more and more realistic. And I think that potentially opens up to a lot more instances of things like fraud. And if someone could impersonate someone else, that's going to cause problems, especially politically as well. It would only take maybe a fake video of Donald Trump, for instance, one of the most powerful people on the planet. If there was an AI generated video of him saying something that may be very controversial or maybe something that he wouldn't say, it could get a message out there very quickly, especially over social media. Things go viral so easily and so rapidly that what's to stop it from happening? And that's just only like at a political level. It could be any level. So I think it's something for me that needs to be somehow vetted. There needs to be almost like an AI behind the AI to say that this is AI or it's not, it's real. because just like, for instance, on YouTube, there's a button that you can tick that whether it's AI generated or not, that's still human interaction. I could lie about that and say, no, it's not, it's real when it's AI generated. So I think there needs to be some sort of machine learning in the background to decide or know when it is real and when it's not. Also, then you've got things like art. So you can digitally create art now. Does that then devalue actual art, or does it increase the value of real life art? And then again, how do you know the difference? Because you could tell something like Grok or ChatGPT or many of the other ones that are out there to create some art for you, and then you've not actually made it. Can you really go sell that for a high price when with the right input anyone could go and make it? We then move into things like smart homes. We've got, for instance, I've got a Apple HomePod that can then actually link to so many other things that I don't actually have in the house, but I think you can link it to small robots and devices to turn on lights, to open windows and things like that. And these now also have AI built into them very easily. Like I can tell, like I could go, I'm not going to say it because it'll trigger something. I could go like, hi, Siri, and it would then sort of answer me and I can tell it what to do. And then there's AI in the background that's going to learn things that and then suggest potential actions that you can tell it to do on like a regular basis. And the smart home market is projected to reach a valuation of around $2.17 trillion in the coming years, which is going to be driven by AI enhanced appliances and interconnected devices. So there's things like I've already mentioned, the Apple HomePod, you've got the Samsung Home AI ecosystem, which is only pushing this trend further. And I think as much as it can be scary in terms of what it can do, I think we're almost going to have to embrace it in a way and use it for its benefits. I think we're almost going to have to embrace it in terms of the positives, but then there needs to be some sort of vetting around the privacy, because obviously if these devices are constantly listening out, where's that data being stored? Can people access it? Is it encrypted? So there's obviously those concerns about the data security, privacy, and cybersecurity. You see all these things about things like iCloud being hacked, computer servers being hacked. What are the potential ramifications of these smart home devices being hacked into and essentially just listening to people's conversations? Because if there's a microphone in it, can that remotely be turned on or off? And can then someone remotely just be sat there listening to a conversation that you may or may not be having? That would be probably a concern for quite a lot of people, just in terms of basic privacy. So, yeah, I think it can be a net positive as long as like I say, the negatives are dealt with and the privacy concerns are also so firm that we know that we can trust them in a way. Because I think that's the main worry of quite a lot of people when these sort of robots and AI come in. Where's the data privacy coming from? How is it being managed? And how safe are they to use? Then another thing that is really common these days is wearable tech and health tracking. So for instance, I've got an Apple Watch. I've had one now since 2017. I had like the Series 2 and I got this, I think it's the Series 6 maybe. I've had this since around 2020, 2021. So it's getting on a little bit. I'm not going to lie, battery is rubbish. Doesn't last the whole day. So I'm on 33% at the moment. All I've done is been for a walk today and basically been sat on my desk all day working. So yeah, not great from Apple. I am potentially looking at Garmin's. I just don't like the look of them. With the wearables, they're only going to get more and more accurate over time. There have been studies about how accurate things like Apple Watches and Garmin's are, and quite often they are way out in terms of the amount of calories they spit out. So I've only been on a walk today, and it's saying that I've got 691 active calories, which I don't think so, because all I've done has been for a walk. There's no way I've done that many calories. And then if I go for a workout, I think most days I end up clearing over 1,000 calories, and then if I was to eat the amount of calories it says I burn, I would definitely be putting on weight, because there's no way I'm doing like 5,000 calories a day burn. So the accuracy will improve over time, don't get me wrong, but it is a very difficult one for a watch to calculate just based on, it only goes off heart rate, and your weight, I think. So it doesn't even take into consideration sort of muscle mass, body fat, things that are going to obviously impact that, and person to person is going to be different. So it's a very rough calculation, and I would always say to people, don't take the calories your watch is saying you're burning as a given, because I could guarantee if you were to sit on those calories for the week, you would not maintain your weight. You would probably put on weight. But there's new tech that's also coming out. So Withings, which is another sort of wearable, are looking to bring out an AI smart mirror, which was also unveiled at the CES 2025. And this is apparently going to perform comprehensive health scans, which is obviously leading to more sophisticated health monitoring. But again, I don't know how a mirror is going to be able to tell you anything, unless there's obviously very high-tech scanning in there, because it says comprehensive health scans. Is that going to be like CT scans, x-rays, MRIs? I doubt it from a mirror, especially in the house. I work for a company that in one of the businesses, they sell MRI machines, and I know they're about £1 million each. So I don't know what an AI smart mirror is going to give you in terms of health scans, but I guess we can only wait and see. It might be something that I look into in terms of just seeing what it actually does. But yeah, the main thing from that wearable tech, great for step counting and stuff like that. But I see a lot of people getting very hung up on hitting the calories burn number when, like I say, it means nothing essentially. Yeah, it's a metric that you can look at and compare day to day, but the actual number itself is not accurate. But if you're constantly looking at an inaccurate number, then it goes up or down, then you know you're working harder or not as hard, if you get my drift, basically. So then we move into how this future tech is going to help work. Like I say, that like the podcast isn't my job, but it's helping me from a perspective of planning these podcasts out. I've also tested it for a few other things, similar to my brother, with the workout stuff, put a few things in just to see what it came out with, and it came out with a really good plan, which I'm actually going to consider starting after this next phase finishes for me. I asked it to create me a workout plan based on, I think it was 4 weighted sessions a week and 3 rowing sessions. So I made it put this workout plan to help me with rowing, because I'm looking to go to the British Indoor Championships again at the end of the year. I wanted a weight plan that would help my rowing. It's picked out some exercises, and I'm going to see how it goes. I'm going to test it, mix up my training a little bit, see what the results are, see if it does help, and we'll go from there. But AI in the workplace, you've got things like Copilot. I've not actually used this yet. I don't think it's been quite integrated into my company. There's a few people that are on like a beta version of it, I think, or there's a few people that have got the license to use it and test it out, but I'm not one of those people yet. So we'll see when that comes through. But I've heard good things about it, heard really good things. But there was a Deloitte survey which revealed that 63% of professionals used generative AI tools for tasks like drafting emails and reports. And this obviously shows the use of it in the workplace is catching on. Like I say, for me, especially with work, the security of data needs to be confirmed that it is safe and it's not going to be at risk of cyber attacks. We've got our own version of sort of chatgpt, which is not as good, which I don't expect it to be. But yeah, we're not allowed to put things like restricted data in. So I don't know, say if we've got an order coming in from a company and we want to, I don't know, draft an email of something or some sort, we can't put in like order values, we can't put project names in. It's all got to be sensitized. So that is obviously a massive concern for huge companies. is the data that's going into these AI tools safe, or is it at risk to being hacked? Also, AI is helping people work remotely. So the pandemic obviously accelerated the adoption of remote working. For me, I used to go into the office 5 days a week. It would be roughly an hour to an hour and a half driving there and back. So potentially 2 to 3 hours of driving a day. I now go in the office maybe twice a week at best. This week, I'm actually not going in. There's no real need for me to. But yeah, I think the technology that's coming out is obviously helping people collaborate across not only different cities, but potentially different countries. And I think we'll really see a shift in terms of companies downsizing in office spaces because there's just no need for them. I think, if anything, the pandemic showed us that business can continue remotely and things don't just fall to pieces. Yeah, there might be culture changes, there might be other things that go on that may be a little bit negative, but in terms of actual business day to day, it doesn't really change. Like for me, I work on a project which is down south. Most of my project team is down south on site. I don't need to be there. There's a couple of people that work in the offices in Manchester where I work, but quite often I don't even speak to them on a day-to-day basis. And if I do need to, I can just catch them on like a 5 to 10 minute Teams call. I'm not really impacted day to day by working from home. Yeah, you don't get that human interaction sometimes. You don't get the body language. And if there are meetings that I need to go in for, which may be enhanced by me being there instead of being on a Teams call, then I do go in. But day to day, there's not that big of a need to. And I think, yeah, I can understand the positives and negatives to it, but it also opens companies up to getting talent from outside of the place where they are based or expecting people to move. So, for instance, my office is in Manchester. We could now go and recruit someone from Glasgow and they wouldn't have to move to Manchester, whereas they originally would be expected to move and work in Manchester 5 days a week. So I think it's helping companies from that perspective where you can get talent from anywhere in the country essentially. And yeah, it's so much more flexible. My work-life balance is so much better. I can get up if I really want to. I can get up at like 7:45 and I can go get a quick shower and I can be online by 8 o'clock. Whereas if I want to be in I leave earlier to get into the office for like 7:30, so I'll leave mine at like 7:15. I'll get up around 6. I don't like rushing in the morning to get ready or anything like that. So I take my time, get my lunch sorted, have breakfast, then I get on the road. So then I'm getting to the office for 7:30. I may finish if I'm lucky at 4 o'clock. Usually not, because I'm in the office and someone will just come and grab me. So quite often I'm in till 4:30, 5. So I'm working an extra hour or hour and a half a day that I'm not paid extra for because I don't get paid overtime. Then I'm leaving in rush hour traffic and I might not get home some days till 6 o'clock, which doesn't sound horrendous. But if you think my day started at 6, I'm not getting home till 6, that's 12 whole hours. Whereas I could get up at 7:45, work 8 till 4, log off, done. That's almost, that was 4 hours difference essentially from my day. And if I really wanted to, I could still get up at 6 and go for a walk, go to the gym, do whatever I want until 8 o'clock. That is going to be a positive impact on my day instead of sitting on a motorway. I think there's pros and cons to it. Like I say, you don't get that personal interaction that you would if you were in the office every day, but the personal benefits of work-life balance, I think, are so much easier to manage from home. We then have things like augmented reality and virtual reality, which seem to be an increase in technology, especially in the gaming space. I've now seen I can't remember, is it Apple Vision it's called? I can't remember. But I've seen some of the videos of where someone's basically sat on a couch and they've got these massive screens out in front of them, but everyone around them obviously can't see it. They've got these goggles on. I've been on one once. There's a massive arcade in Liverpool, and they had just got in a virtual reality game. And don't get me wrong, when you are using it, it is so cool. Like the graphics on it now are so realistic. But I can't help but think you just look like an idiot, and it's so separated from reality almost, if you get what I mean. So if you were playing a video game, you could sit there with your mate and your mate could be watching, or you could be chatting, or they could be playing as well. Obviously, you can still play two-player, I think, on virtual reality stuff, but it's kind of like that human connection, kind of similar to the remote working. This is like remote game playing. Like, I'm not a gamer, so I don't really get it, but if I was to be playing a game, like say if I'd gone round to my mate's house and he was sat there with a virtual reality thing on and I'm just sort of sat there not knowing what's going on, or I'm watching it on a screen whilst he's playing, I couldn't help but think, what's the point of me being here? But yeah, it is strange. I couldn't imagine a class. Like, imagine if this got into schools. I couldn't imagine like a class of 30 kids sat there, all these goggles on, learning. I just, what's wrong with a screen? Maybe I'm being a bit old fashioned, but yeah, I get there's the immersive side of things. Like, the company I work for is like a massive engineering company, and we had years ago this VR cave sort of thing. So what you'd be able to do is you'd be able to get a massive model of whatever it was you were working on. Say it was a motor or an engine or something, and you could strip it back bit by bit and have a look into what was going on. You could also then practice working on one of these motors without actually physically working on a motor. So you could break something in this virtual world, but it's not going to cost the company anything in terms of you've broke a part and we've got to go replace it now because you've messed up. But yeah, I don't know how I feel on the virtual reality. I don't think it's something that I'm going to be purchasing anytime soon, especially those Apple. I'm sure it's Apple Vision. I'm sure they're about $3,000. There's no way I'm going to be sat on the couch with a pair of goggles on for $3,000 when I've got a TV on the wall, or I've got a laptop, or my iPad, or my phone, or even better, a Game Boy Color with Pokemon Pinballing, absolute classic. If you don't know, get to know, it is great. But yeah, not sure my views on the VR. Then we move into social media. So social media obviously has these really complex algorithms behind things which help basically curate your explore feeds, and I think with social media it's getting more and more complex behind the scenes, just due to the amount of community guidelines, things like that, making sure the platforms are safe. And I'm pretty sure a lot of them now are using AI for content moderation to remove inappropriate content. You've got a forever growing amount of OnlyFans models, or whatever they want to call themselves, on Instagram, trying to promote to go to the spicy link, as they call it. But yeah, I think there's probably some error in the content moderation as well, because there's only so much it can do at the moment, and there's still things that probably shouldn't be on there. I often come across things like I mentioned on a podcast just last week, which was a girl in China. She was trying to squat 270 kilos really badly. The setup was horrendous. She basically fell off a platform that she was stood on to try and lift the weight off the bar in the first place, and then fell, and then the bar fell straight on her neck and she died as a result of it. Now, that shouldn't be on Instagram for me, seeing someone die right in front of your eyes. Now, since that, it comes up with one of those warnings that you might not want to see it. But I think quite a lot of humans in general are just intrigued to see what's behind that ban, almost. It's not even a ban, it's a warning. The intrigue's there, isn't it? So you're going to press see real, and then that comes up. And you're like, what? Why does this need to be on here? And then you've got, like I would mention, the OnlyFans models and stuff like that, which are constantly trying to find ways around the guidelines to get you to then be enticed into going and pressing the links. I think that is going to grow and probably get better over time. But again, yeah, I think the main issue is the accuracy around the moderation. I've seen people complain that their content has been deleted or blocked off Instagram, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. So, yeah, it needs to be improved. It will be over time, but it's just not quite there at the moment. Stepping away from things like AI, we've got transportation and the obviously electric vehicle revolution, which, yeah, I'm an old head with this one. I drive an M140 BMW, 3 litre, straight line, 6-cylinder, makes a great sound, and there is no chance I'm changing that to an electric car anytime soon. Don't get me wrong, there's companies out there making them more affordable now, but quite a lot of them are still very, very expensive for what I would deem as what is meant to be an entry-level electric car. And to be quite honest, I think electric cars are one of the biggest scams on the planet. I saw a report about a year ago, and it compared, I can't remember what electric car it was, but it compared it to something like a standard Toyota or something like that. Both cars would have had to driven 125,000 miles for the electric car to be then more carbon friendly than the Toyota, which at that point the electric car would have already needed a new battery, which is another one of the main issues in terms of the cost. So there is the Porsche Taycan, which is the electric Panamera, and these are quite often taken up by businessmen on company car schemes because they're cheap, they get the tax benefits, and they obviously put a lot of miles on them. They're driving up and down the country, things like that, and it comes around to them giving the cars back after their lease terms up. So I don't know, maybe 3 years, 4 years. They've clocked up a load of miles. It's then time for the battery needing to be changed, or it's going to be needed to change pretty soon. So I think for those cars, I remember seeing, depending on which model you had, to get the battery changed, it was between £20,000 and £30,000 just for a battery. Now, I paid second hand for my M140 £20,000. So, for the sake of a new battery and a Porsche Taycan, I could go and get my car again, which I'm not going to need to, because a petrol car or a diesel car, they can drive for hundreds of thousands of miles. Yeah, you might have to get a few little bits and bobs changed over time, but in terms of the engine, it's going to be pretty okay for a very long time. And then you get into the side of things where you've got all these rare earth metals going into these batteries, which are coming from God knows where, what conditions of work the people are in. And yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. And at the moment, most of the electricity that goes into charging these batteries are still coming from sort of non-renewable sources, which I think, I don't want to put like a tin hat on or anything, but I think it's a load of rubbish just to push prices up, to be quite honest. Just looking at electric cars in general, they look so soulless. They all look the same. And then you look inside of them and there's no buttons anymore. It's just a massive iPad screen. And it's so minimalist. I just really am not a fan of it, to be quite honest. And there's too many petrol cars that I want to own before I die. So yeah, I won't be getting an electric car anytime soon. And if I do, it will be because I'm in a job at work which requires me to get a company car, and just simply because of the tax benefits of having one instead of a petrol car. But I actually said before moving into my new job next month that if I was required to get one, I would get an electric car that was cheap and still keep my BMW. There was no chance I was getting rid of that and driving an electric car full time at all. But that's just me. It's all preference at the end of the day. But then there's also the growing autonomous driving. So I've seen a couple of fail videos on like Facebook and YouTube and Instagram where there's these now autonomous taxis, and someone got into one of these taxis and something must have malfunctioned in terms of where it was taking them, and just started doing loops of the car park. They were stuck in this car park. I'm pretty sure they were going for a flight as well. So they had to call this company up and say, look, I've got into one of your taxis. It's not stopped doing loops around the car park for like the last 10, 20 minutes. How do I stop it and get out and get into a different one? They had to literally like manually shut down the car from like externally. So yeah, I'm sure those things will improve over time as they learn routes and get the tech behind them right. But there's companies like John Deere who obviously do the tractors, they've now brought out, or at least unveiled, a self-driving tractor. So that's going to address things like labour shortages. I kind of see that one, but you always see on the news about unemployment rates. Could it not be a different option to potentially upskill people that are unemployed to then do different jobs that are required? Say if there's farming shortages, say if there's, I don't know what else, like lorry drivers. So I assume self-driving lorries are going to be a thing at some point. Would it not be better to get unemployment rates down by essentially filling jobs that need to be done? So you need lorry drivers, you need farmers. There's plenty of jobs out there that people could be doing that don't need to necessarily be made autonomous just yet. I think it would be a better option to try and get unemployed people into work. Say, going back to COVID times, like essential workers, why do we not try and push people into those jobs if they are sort of struggling to get back out there? Not necessarily push, but give them the option to potentially change career, get into work if they've just been out of work in general. Would that not be a better option than going towards autonomous? Because if we do make things autonomous, we've still got the issue of people being unemployed. So, yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act of progressing with technology, but also helping people that actually need work and jobs and money. Then we have tech and mental health. So there's people moving towards AI companionship. So a survey indicates that 18% of seniors use AI for companionship, with 80% reporting excellent mental health and suggesting AI's potential in reducing loneliness. Bit of a strange one, not sure why there's a move towards that, but you see it quite a lot in terms of different apps coming out with AI that you can speak to. I'm pretty sure Snapchat's got one, and I'm pretty sure Apple may have one on iMessage now. But yeah, so there's obviously people getting older in life, people maybe dying around them, and yeah, they may start getting a bit lonely. And sounds like people are using AI for a chat, pretty much. Don't know if speaking to AI is a great thing. Goes back to the human connections. Not something that I'd personally look for. Obviously, not in that position at the moment, but if it's helping people, it's helping people at the end of the day. I would always suggest trying to make friends if possible. I know it can be harder in later life, especially if you're in those later years in life, to make new friends at that point. Probably pretty daunting. Some may even think it's pretty pointless because they may not know how long they've got left. But there's always clubs and things that you can go to. There's always people you can speak to. I would use, personally, AI as a last resort. But yeah, if there's a report coming out saying 80% reported excellent mental health out of that 18% that are using AI for companionship, then fair enough. If it works, it works. They're also, in terms of the mental health side of things, we've got to be careful with digital burnout. Now, it can be so easy to just sit there on your phone, especially with these apps like Instagram and TikTok. Those reel sections are so easy to just scroll from one to the next and to the next and to the next. It's those little kicks of dopamine that you get, and your brain then searches for the next one. And I think that so easily leads to burnout. Not only that, if you're doing it late at night and you are sacrificing your sleep for it as well. So I, to be honest, can be really bad for it. I can get into bed. Before you know it, I've been there for an hour or 2 hours just scrolling my phone. And then I wake up the next day shattered. So I think I've seen there's a couple of apps. There's one called, I think it's called Opal, and now I've seen a lot of adverts for a company called Brick, I think, which is this little plastic square, and once you press it, it'll lock your phone out for as long as you tell it to, and you literally cannot touch it. Well, you can touch it. You can't go into the apps that you've decided to block for that period of time. Which, yeah, it's a pretty good idea. It's difficult because, especially with things like Instagram, it's got messaging functions. If you're chatting to mates and then you turn your phone off, you might miss something. Say if it was a time sensitive thing where maybe it's, do you want to go to the gym at X time? Do you want to go to the pub or whatever? And then if you've blocked your phone out for, say, that hour and you've missed it, then I don't know, it could lead to potential relationship breakdowns, friendship breakdowns, who knows? But I think digital burnout is the thing that this generation really needs to be careful with. And there are some things you can't avoid in terms of digital. Like for me, I work on a computer all day. I run a podcast outside of work. I have to be on my laptop. I have to be on my phone to post content, edit content, and it all takes time up. I think the issue is when it becomes those never ending doom scrolls and you just end up in that wormhole of reels. Then you think, oh, I've gone through all these. Let's hop over to TikTok. You've been on there for half an hour. Then you might jump back to Instagram, but then you might go to Snapchat, but then you might go to Facebook. And it's just this never ending cycle of going through each of the apps because you've been off them for that long that then the feed's updated and you can go back and see all the new stuff. I've not found a solution yet. I've tried to put app limits on. They're too easy to turn off on Apple. I've tried to wind down of an evening, go and do not disturb, all this, that, and the other. Again, too easy to turn off. Sometimes I genuinely just need to go on my phone to, like I say, message someone or organise something or just do something. So, yeah, maybe Brick might be the option to get one of those little things that completely hard block you out of these apps of an evening. That sort of rounds me up. I guess what is next for the future? Who knows? Like I was saying earlier, when this thing was out, when the Game Boy Color was out, we probably didn't think that you would then move on to, I don't know, like a Nintendo DS, a PSP, an iPhone. I remember being in year 7 at school and one of my mates got the first iPhone that came out. And I remember us being in the school playground at high school and there was a really basic app and it was like a beer app. So on your phone, it would look like a pint of beer. And as you did this to drink it, the beer would fall out of the glass. And we thought that was amazing at the time. Sounds really sad thinking about it now. But then obviously you got apps, you got games, things progress all the time. And I think we can't actually comprehend how far this future AI will go, especially with all the technology that's coming out with that's going to be using AI. You've got things like crypto as well, which I'm sure is going to have some sort of AI interaction at some point, is going to have payment interactions. But I think we've got to kind of embrace it and take it on. Obviously, be aware of the negatives to it, the potential concerns with cybersecurity and just data privacy. But I think we've got to kind of embrace it because if you don't, especially in business, you're probably going to be left behind. You see the amount of companies that have gone out of business because they didn't think the next thing was going to come along. I think there's a famous story about Kodak, I think it was, one of the biggest camera companies at the time. It didn't embrace the digital camera, and now look where it is. It is basically non-existent. You've got the likes of Sony and Canon because they embraced the digital camera and Kodak didn't. There's so many examples of this in business where they've essentially laughed at someone for a new idea because at the time they were absolutely fine. They were the biggest company. And then because they've not embraced that next new technology, they've been left behind and then forgotten about almost. But I think, especially in business, yeah, we do need to embrace these things because you're going to get left behind and then you either catch up or you pretty much disappear. So I think we can take that into personal life as well. For me, I'm using ChatGPT to help me with my podcast. I'm getting time back instead of sitting around having to go through someone's Instagram, seeing what they've been posting recently, doing a bit of research on some topics. I can get it straight from ChatGPT. I can put the right inputs in, get the right outputs out. I can go in, I can edit whatever it spits out of me. And yeah, I think people need to embrace things like this more and more and use it for the good and not the potential bad that this stuff could potentially cause. We don't know. But we look forward to seeing what happens in the future. Like I say, I don't think people expected a Game Boy Color to end up at Xboxes, PS5s, or whatever number it is these days. It's going to happen. Don't know where it's going to go, but excited to see what comes of it in the future. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like. If you're new, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.